Welcome to PL Together Lounge Talks. I'm Adam Geller, founder and CEO of Edthena, the video professional learning platform used by schools and districts around the country. Today, we're talking with Heather Hill. She is a math education researcher, and she thinks a lot about what does it even mean when we try and define high impact instruction. How do you measure that? How do you know it when you see it? Heather, hopefully you're going to help us see it today a little bit. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Adam.
So I want to, shift our topic a little bit from where we've been before, which for those that are just joining, we've talked about some of your work in creating frameworks for actually defining what good math teaching looks like, and maybe shift a little bit to some of your research about understanding the impacts of policy. So let's start there and just kind of guide us. Like, does policy work to lead to the types of changes we want? Let's say, a kind of declaration about what math instruction should look like. Like, does that actually happen? Like, what do we know about the true impact of policy?
Yeah. Okay. So number one, we know that you cannot say in written policy, teachers should teach in this way, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden teachers are teaching in that way. We've known that for a very long time, since the beginning of the standards movement that set out statements about what teaching should look like. People then walked into classrooms and were not surprised to find that teachers were not teaching in that way. Even though policymakers, I think, had hoped that the policy would lead directly to that. So I think what the field has accumulated knowledge about over the last 20 to 30 years, since the beginning of the standards movement and the beginning of pushing toward more rigorous forms of instruction, meaning kids are more engaged in the intellectual work, kids' voices are heard. What we've learned is that policy has to be accompanied by some pretty serious supports for teachers learning how to do the policy in their classroom. So, for instance, one of the things that we've recently found in a meta-analysis of over 90 STEM instructional improvement programs is that when you pair professional development with curriculum materials, so teachers are learning how to use those curriculum materials, you see better program impacts than if teachers have professional development alone or a curriculum alone. But even those are better than doing nothing. Right. So it is when you can create a system that is maximally supportive of teacher learning that you see the better impacts or the better outcomes for policies that ask teachers to go in the direction of more rigorous instruction. I would say that the second thing that we know, so the first thing is about the supports and creating as many supports as possible, whether that be curriculum materials, professional development, but also assessments that teachers are giving kids, which are also really important. They have to be lined up and going in the same direction. I think the second thing that is critically important is sort of coherence in the larger environment that teachers are in. So I have talked to so many teachers who say, like, I was really interested in this curriculum material. I really wanted to do my best. I was making progress in advancing toward more rigorous instruction. But then my principal started coming and telling me that I had to use the district's teacher evaluation instrument as a touchstone, and that instrument is all about direct instruction. So I was not able to do the things that I was making progress on because all of a sudden my evaluator was in the room asking me whether I was giving clear explanations and whether the kids were then practicing the content that I just taught. So it's this kind of surround that teachers today are working in that is very different than what they were working in 30 years ago because of things like accountability, evaluation, has a huge impact on how teachers can improve their craft. It's ironic because I think all of that was put in with hopes that would help teachers improve their craft, but those things like teacher accountability, teacher evaluation, didn't give teachers any concrete supports to get the job done. So this goes back to my original point, which is if you want policy that pushes along good teaching, it has to be supportive for teachers. It cannot be punitive and it cannot be empty. It can't be saying, oh, your kid should achieve X on the state test. Like, that's not helpful to a teacher in terms of improving that teacher's teaching.
So I'll confess I cheated a little bit here because I asked you about policy, and in my mind, what I was really thinking about was the biggest version of a system for change.
Mhm.
And the reason I think that that's important to talk about it, and maybe you can help us make the connections between what you just were telling us and the massive system for change that basically is being created right now to help teachers change into this new teaching environment. Um, so, I mean, I could try and draw some dots based on what you just said, but I mean, take us a walk through the park. I think it's a pretty short dotted line here, but like if you're
Yeah.
creating that system for change now, like, is it the same as what you were just telling us?
So you mean in terms of the online remote schooling or this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, or maybe let me say what I think I hear you're saying in terms of what it means for COVID, and then confirm, reject, deny, tell me something different. Like, it
Right.
sounds like what you're telling us is a successful system for change has as a critical feature robust professional development supports
Mhm.
aligned to the curriculum that needs to be delivered in
That's
order to help the teachers make, enact, and sustain the changes that you're hoping to see.
that's correct. And if you're about to infer that that couldn't have happened in the 6 months during which we have been impacted by COVID in the education system, I think you're also correct. I mean, I think in the ideal, we would have had templates for teachers to use that helped them take their curriculum and convert it into an online setting. So for instance, in my own teaching at Harvard, Harvard has been actually pretty, or the Graduate School of Education at Harvard has been pretty, I don't want to say aggressive, but like pretty just clear in terms of like, here's a better model for online teaching and here's a worse model for online teaching. The worst model is you think you're in a classroom and you stand there and you do the things that you were going to do in a classroom. The better model is that you decompose your classes into shorter segments that students are able to digest. You then do the second step, then you do this third step. I don't think that most institutions, I mean, we have an incredibly talented teaching and learning division at the School of Education at Harvard. I don't think most institutions were there over the summer in terms of supporting teachers. I think a lot of what school districts were doing, from what I heard, was how do you get busing? Like, how do you think about busing? How do you think about HVAC systems? How do you think about food? And they were not yet at the point of really re-envisioning instruction.
I mean, I think as you're saying, those are important operational concerns. I think there's also a set of professional development, even though I don't like labeling it as professional development, that has occurred. That's the true, like, technical skill up set of processes that needed to take place for teachers. But I guess I'm curious, like, should we be sounding the alarm for school and district leaders here who, haven't yet said that they agree and will put on the top of their list that a revised professional development set of structures for their teachers is not, it's not optional here. Like, I guess, is that a fair conclusion to be making?
I mean,
Like, this
I
is a
don't know.
problem?
I don't know what's happening. If you're telling me that teachers are getting typical professional development that is non-COVID related at this time, which is October of 2020, I think that's a little crazy. Unless you're in a school that is in person and expects to be in person all year, which I don't think any school in the US is in that situation. I think that having access to time, colleagues, and some templates for thinking about teaching remotely is just super critical at this point, and that's where teachers should be spending their PL time.
Yeah, I mean, I can share. I'm operating with kind of the murmurs I'm hearing, and I think
Mhm.
um, in the disheartening reality might be that it may be even less than what you're just saying, and it may actually be that professional development hasn't yet been on the plate because there are a ton of top of the list issues like adjusting kids into new learning environments. But
Mhm.
as a result, they've just kind of pushed down and pushed out the questions of answering how will they support teachers. And of course, as someone who is in the professional development space, I'm like, you know, I suspect even on this video, my eyes are like popping open at
I
this
know. I
reality.
just hope that they give teachers back the time. Like I think that you know, on planning for online instruction is significantly more time intensive than just walking into a classroom and teaching. And I'm hoping that if the PL is not on the horizon, that the teachers are getting that time back as professional paid time to do the planning and do the prep that they need to do in order to teach well.
I like that. I suspect some teachers are going to like that too when they hear that. You're not giving me the professional learning, so give me the time.
It's absolutely crazy to think about what we're asking teachers to do. Especially high school teachers who have multiple preps and are preparing multiple classes to go online daily. It's a lot.
I remember the challenges myself of prepping, and I wonder if I would be up to that task. I think I would figure out how to meet the moment, but man, like you, I am in awe of what is happening out there. Well, Heather, we are almost out of time, so I want to ask you our extra credit question that's part of PL Together, and that is, what is something that has changed for you, maybe personally, maybe professionally, during the pandemic that, it's been a positive and you hope will continue?
Okay. So I guess there's a couple answers. You can edit out the ones you're not interested in. So let's do it that way. So
we might, no, we're going to keep them all.
Okay.
You can give us one and tell us that there are 3 others. That's okay. You don't have to give us them all.
I think this is somewhat related to the pandemic, but it's also just a little bit also related to police violence and a lot of the other things happening in our country. And I think that it's lit a fire under me to think much more seriously about equitable outcomes. Not that I didn't before, but the way I thought about equitable outcomes before was I want good teachers in every classroom and I want high quality instruction for every kid. Now I'm thinking, well, that's probably not enough. Like there's more that has to change. In particular, in light of the fact that the pandemic is hurting low-income Black and Brown communities educationally much more so than affluent. There's a lot of evidence about kid engagement that is piling up, that we're in a really pretty severe situation. I don't think we're going to know for a couple of years how bad it actually is, but that my suspicion is it's very bad. Now I don't want to talk about the personal one because it's just like it's a little bit more happy, or maybe you want to end on the happy one. But I was not worried in the spring about kids missing 10 weeks of instruction, but I am on the floor about this. And I really feel like we have not prepared as a country. We have really no way of thinking about how to solve the problem of kids missing so much critical content. So that's the unhappy one. The happier one would be personal. I've actually, we were home with our kids through most of the summer, and they're partially back in school now. And it's actually just been nice to have the kids around. So, as a parent, oftentimes your kids are off doing soccer or with their friends. And it was actually really nice to be in the house with the kids and really get to be a family before they start going off to college and things like that.
Well, I'm making this promise. We're going to keep them both in. Heather, I really appreciate you joining us to be part of PL Together. It's been great to learn from you today, to hear about what the research says, to push you to try and help us make some inferences about what the research might tell us what to do next. And maybe those are some new research questions that others out there will be starting to look into.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. All right, thanks, Adam. This is really fun.
If you're joining this conversation and wondering what we talked about for the rest of it, or you want to hear from other education experts, head to pltogether.org, where our full conversation is available. Heather, thanks so much for being part of PL Together.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.